out there. I have my my screen here. Let's share. Today really was about biotech, energy, and Canada rallying. And to the downside, it was Bitcoin, technology, and semis. It was pretty hilarious, spot on to the almost to the dollar. We're going to take a look at the chart. Exactly what we were calling for in the video last week with a mean reversion of the semiconductor space is exactly what happened today in a big move down. You'll see it 3.5% move lower in semis. A lot of it was Nvidia, Micron, a lot of others. But let's take a look. So as I said today, to the upside, biotech, energy, and Canada is where investor dollars rotate into, and Bitcoin, tech, and semis, just as we call for on that regard. Semis mean reverting all the way back down. We'll take a look what's going on. So biotech up 2%. I have a position in ARC-G, which didn't feel too good today, but that's okay. And that's why we have a credit leg, and that's a hedge for an entire market short. Energy, they gobbled up today, up 2.5%. And then Canada up 1.5%, almost 2%, obviously correlated with oil. Sometimes people used to always put that trade on, buy oil, and then as a hedge trade, you can sell something correlated like a high commodity rich nation like Canada. So they gobbled up Canada today. And then bad day for Bitcoin. Curious to look at the chart of this. We've been talking about it. It looks tired today. A lot of ugly weakness in Bitcoin, trade as low as just a touch under 60K. Rocco's not too happy because he owns a couple of Dogecoin, obviously. I'm joking. I wouldn't let him buy that crap. I just bought more mega cap tech with his money, right? I think he farted. And then semiconductors down hard today, 3.5%. The broader tech spectrum was down 2.5%. So they really did take out the semis, you'll see. And the best three absolute trades of the week, going back 5 trading sessions, is short Bitcoin due to the extreme weakness today. Short TAN, very interesting. We were talking about this one potentially being a sign or an area for a good trade, and now it's going the other way. So let's see if it can break, and maybe it's a trade going that way. It's good to be flexible. And then long oil. Oil is doing well. The third best trade in the market, the best long, actually. Copper miners at second place. So let's take a look at all this, starting with the intraday SPY chart. Let me share my screen, the other screen. Hi. While I do that, pretty crazy. I was out like 3 out of the past 4 nights. And basically what my birthday confirmed a couple weeks ago. I'm old, I think is what I learned. But yeah, any hooser. All right. So, but I learned I could still rock karaoke, singing Creed and many other great songs very well, and dancing to the Counting Crows, which I also saw live on Friday night with Santana, who was 76 years old and still somehow crushes it. So much fun. Okay, so we hit a high at 10 a.m. and then that petered out pretty quickly after that. And you can see we weren't even really able to hold VWAP after lunch, after 12:30 p.m. A very low volume day. And I was looking at the chart here at the 3:30 hour p.m. Eastern time, and I was curious if it was going to be drawn and magnetized to its VWAP level, which it actually tagged, it touched, and then it's also its 200 bar moving average. Of course, I pay attention to technicals, and it's going to make a lot of sense actually when you see what we're talking about in terms of price reversion in the semiconductors. And then what happened instead, though, it went all the way to new lows. The negative momentum of the entire afternoon was just too much. And then we went lower. Really, it was the Qs dragging us lower, down 1.3%. Russell bucked the trend up 0.4, as there were some areas that that were bid, right? So let's take a look at some of the areas that were. Just in zooming out, though. So this is the SPY zoomed out. So just see a little bit of a distribution phase, if you will, for the next 2 or so weeks, ending on or around, the July. I have like July 5th for an end date, and that's going to take around 535 in the SPY, basically a $7 or so reduction from where we are today. So a little bit more pain, but nothing horrendous. You could see a little bit more of a flush all the way down to 520, but that would be, pretty ugly, and that would take you all the way to these lows. Essentially what we first captured in March, but we've been able to hold since May. So that's if things get ugly. But really, I think you're going to buy time, potentially do this all, just never short a dual market and all that stuff. Probably we just go sideways to lower to 535, like I said, over the next 2 weeks. And then continuing onwards, seasonality, like I said, and everything like that is good. Now the politics kind of actually do pay a kind of a bit of a contribution, with the first debate being on Thursday night with 2 80-year-old guys. So That's going to be fun. Take out your bingo card for that. Just put your grandparents on the phone. I don't know. They should FaceTime and not even be able to see the screen. And I'm guessing CNN will have even lower ratings. All right. Any hooser. So that was the SPY. So that's where I am, broader picture. Okay. The IB or the IBB, like I said, so I took a little bit of pain on this because I am in a very similar ETF. I'm in the ARKG. But like I said, it's very correlated to this. So yeah, it is tapping its head on this big thrust up here, 1.9%. You can see it touched the upper band here. Its 52-week highs are not that, out of reach. It's $1 away here from February. So that's pretty interesting. Overall, not doing a ton. This looks like very range bound from 140 and 130, this with a minor blip here, extreme weakness, potentially, with a rate scare, with these guys being, pre-revenue, a lot of these biotechs and having to rely on rates to borrow. All that being said, I think it doesn't. So I'm short this name technically because it's ARKG sister almost. So I don't think it's going to go up much further from here. It could always have, a candle like that. You have another day or two. But in terms of absolute levels, I don't think this crosses much more than. It sounds crazy because if it takes out a 50-week high, that's momentum, et cetera, et cetera. But I see this thrust kind of ending and this having a date with 135 pretty soon. So that's why I'm not, extremely threatened. But if broadening happens, it happens, and this could go higher. And that's why it's a hedge, and it's not going to kill me one way or the other. So this specific energy ETF was up big today. XLE was up big as well, but this is the one that had recorded a extra significant move. So did XLE. So this is up 2.5%. Its 52-week high was back here in April. And you could see lower highs, kind of losing momentum here. The 200-day moving average is just stuck at 17.5. So your support, is there. I still think this is in an accumulation mode, but it's probably going to get tired around 1875, 19, somewhere around there. But no, 19 is a stretch. I don't think it's going to 19 top. So that's what I see for the energy complex. But if you got in, a couple days ago, nice job with capturing most of the move. And then Canada. So this chart may look similar because it's such an oil rich. So a little bit better. Still a rising 200-day moving average with its highs more recent in May. Let's see what this looks like. Not a great chart. This looks like it wants to go up a little bit more, but then I think it's going to get tired right around like 37.5. Yep. So about another 50 cents, percent and a half or so. Basically another return of what it did today. Maybe half of it tomorrow, and then it peters. But yeah. So that's that. Not a lot of powerful stuff here. Powerful to the downside. So Bito got really shellacked today. Bito down 8%, and that is a big move lower. That is going to be your biggest trade over the past week, short or long, in terms of absolute return, 8.5% for the past 5 days. Bito down 8 today. So let's see. I've been looking at we've been looking at charting this before, and this almost reminds me of the Mexico chart where this isn't spending time oversold. Now it is. It just entered at 29. It did that here on May 1st. It did it for a minute, and then what happened? It popped right back up. Look at the support here. This is specifically the Bito chart. It actually is touching. It pierced its 200-day moving average. I could do the same, a 200-day, look up a one-year chart on Bitcoin itself, trading 60K. But I'm keeping it here on Bito specifically that registered this large 8% move. So it's still going up. It still has a nice velocity to its 200-day moving average. Don't like the fact that it peaked, St. Patrick's Day week, essentially, March 13th here. So that's not wonderful with lower highs. And it seems this $34 range is so far away. And to be frank, I mean, it's $22 today. So 50% rally would take it to $33. My goodness. But then again, it is Bitcoin. This, I don't want to say has to hold because it can also dip and have a little bit of a regime here. But this, I think, getting back to the Mexico analogy, I think should be mean reverting and should be getting towards 26. So that's a crazy move because 26 is $4. That's a 20% pop. But then again, it's down 8% today. So could it gain 4% tomorrow? Yeah, easily. But just looking at different charts and things, and this looks like it wants to get to 25 half, around there. This looks a little bit overdone. We'll see what happens. You guys see how Bitcoin trades tonight and tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week, but definitely looks weak. Yeah, right. Okay, so here's broader tech XLK. This was interesting. I mean, I'm really going to emphasize it with the SMH chart, but XLK, this should have never, I don't want to say never should have happened, but this trade or these prints from June 20th, where you see it get above the upper band, That's crazy because this is such a multi-trillion-dollar sector, and in efficient markets, these typically tend to trade within the band. As you can see, its history, they almost always inside the blue, right? And this is expanding for volatility through Bollinger Bands, something I use a lot. Very rarely it will go outside. It does happen though. Look at this. All last week, essentially, from June 12th, we're outside. So that's represented here with the overbought. Here, when we were overbought, it was still within the balance. Here, it started to escape a little bit in December, but it wasn't just up and away. So all that being said, I had this in the video. I believe it was actually on the 20th, my Thursday, I believe it was, video, because I couldn't do the Friday. When we were looking at this, I said this is trading. We closed that day at 229. It hit a high of 233. I'm rounding. It was 232. I said this has to mean revert, essentially. It doesn't have to because the market do whatever the hell it wants. But this should trade at 220 in the next 2 weeks or so. I am not Nostradamus, just someone with a big nose. Nostradamus. I'm real tired. I had like half a cup of coffee. And what did it do? It didn't do it in 2 weeks. It did it in 2 sessions. Okay, so we went from a high of 233 all the way to, where do we trade the low today? 222, which is basically where it closed. I don't think this is done. The bottom, I think, is right around 220. You could have like a more significant flush all the way down to 210, and these lows would still hold, for May, right around Memorial Day. It's going to feel painful, but that's that. Let me go in on SMH because this will really make the point. This was absolutely... So it's funny. The XLK actually, now that I look at it, was more outside. This one is as well, but you can see as this candle looks like it had momentum to the downside. And when that happened on June 20th, I'm looking at another chart too, and the other one looks just grossly overbought. So there's different ways to do it. I'm looking at a different one with Chaikin money flow and also the RSI. But yeah, June 20th, same video. I said this has to trade to 255 over the next 2 weeks. What were we trading then? It was trading 280, guys. 280 to 255 is a 25-point move. Am I right? Okay. That was a massive move. And you got 3.5% today alone. So where do we go from here? You have an ugly flush to around 235. Which would be painful to most. That's another 10%. It will probably feel like people that say that the trend is over, get out of semis, AI trade is dead, It's not going to happen, I don't think. I think the test lower will happen if it wants to, but I don't think the trend is over because, truthfully, without really getting into it, the support is lower at the 200-day, still rising moving average. The 235, all it says is essentially you still have short-term momentum indicators in place. And you're still holding 3-month highs, you're still, not printing, 6-month lows rather. So, but you're going to see weakness in this. All right, quickly, because we're taking a little bit too much time here. I feel like top 5 gainers of the past 5 days. Oil, #1 trade from the long side over the past week. Where do we go from here? Because now that we said, the semis expect this, a little bit of a move lower. Bitcoin should bounce up a little bit. Tech should still go lower. And we talked about, Canada, Biotech is at its limit essentially. So all the technicals help to put in guardrails, right, to see where I should expect much more and much less. So oil, it's funny. I think we were talking about this maybe 2 weeks ago in the video, but right around here, I think we were saying like, oh, that was probably your short-term chance. This wall of steel, this 200-day moving average of 74.55 in oil, in USO specifically. You had just like 4 days here of weakness. Below that, you got things on sale. Where do we go from here? So I'm a believer in these upper bands here. I don't think this has a ton more to go. Maybe $80, but not, or 81. But I don't think it's actually going to go and close in on $83 for a new 52-week high. I don't think that's going to happen. And then I think after that, these highs are done, meaning the highs of $80 or so. I think it's going to have a date with $76 over the next 2 weeks or so. So that's my oil outlook, but it is the best trade this week. So the momentum is with it. Don't want to say it's over now. Maybe it does have, another $80 or so for USO. COPEX, copper miners, very, commodities lead in the bigger gainers right now in the past 5 days. So let's take a look at COPEX, where it goes from here. This is a Good looking chart here. Highs May 20th. Looks like it wants to be accumulated. It's going to have, a little bit of work cut out for it to get above its 21 EMA. It's going to need a bit of a thrust. Had a good job today, up to, in a third percent. So I'm curious to see what it does here. I think it does push towards 48. And then it'll probably reset back here to 46. XLE energy. This is going to look very similar to the oil chart. Let's see, because energy actually and the oil commodity have gotten different love. So this doesn't look wonderful. It peaked on April 12th. This looks like it wants to go to 92 and then struggle. I just see this slinky of failure, essentially, of lower prices and a slowing down. Yeah, the 200-day moving average now in XLE is now going lower. For the first time in a bit, it is going lower. It is now 88.42, down from 88.43. Still a slower momentum, especially if you realize that 2.5 months of lower gains. Yeah, again, I think this wants to get to 92, maybe 92 quarter, and then have a rough time and then go back to 90. So not looking in these areas right now personally. Mexico, the fourth best gainer of the week. Remember this thing with all its drama? So much drama, you need a Dramamine. I just thought of that. That's not like a Kendrick or anything. That's just a Salama. All right, so it's just tough here. This 200-day moving average looks staunch resistance at 63.5. That's still heavens away. I think this is in, I don't want to say gobble mode. It was up 60 bips today, essentially. This looks like it wants to get to tops 59. That's going to be really difficult, I think. That's another $1.40 would be a nice move in terms of percent. And then from there, you got to see how this one goes. Obviously, because like the election's gone and all that. And this wasn't natural disaster related or anything. It was a political event. So it's working off the oversold. That $59 or so is going to equate with a 21 exponential moving average. Also, with it trying to reclaim if it does it in the next week or so, it's going to try to reclaim its 14-day 50 RSI. So pretty meaningful. We'll see if it does it. Still needs to do more. And lastly, another area that they're pouring into in the last week, the fifth best long regional banks up 3.5% over the past week. Let's see. Today was up 2%, so a lot today. I think it's kind of done for the most part. I think this was a nice scoop if you did it at 46 to 47.5. This has had just a hard time really getting spring from its 200-day moving average. Not a great area with, really the peak of this was in December where it had its highs of $54. This might want to get to 49. Then after that, I think it would crap out. 49 being here, top of the band, and then a move lower towards, 46, 47. All right, top 5 losers of the past 5 days, no repeats. Bito is the biggest loser. Not looking at that again. TAN, this is interesting. So TAN is the second biggest loser, down 6% in the past week, down 60 bips, or a tenth of that move it was today. So let's see. So this was what I was looking for. Very interesting. It only did it. I needed to see a month or so. Not that that's hard empirical evidence, but for me, I had to have a line in the sand. And instead of it doing for a month, it did it from May 28th till June 14th. So about 2 weeks and change. And now it's, starting to fail again, falling 200-day moving average. What have we learned? So I actually don't think this is going to crap that much more. The velocity, given that it was able to do this, like a ball bouncing, it was able to gather momentum, actually bounced and held its velocity, if you will, a little bit. So I don't think the bottom is going to fall out. I perceive these lows to hold for now. These April 25th lows, I actually think if this wants to go low over the next week or so, I really don't think so. I don't think they're going to hammer this space because I'm impressed with the strength. I think it maybe visits 40 on like a extreme sell, and then I think it actually wants to maybe possibly be an area where investors throw money at. Obviously, this is a lot of EV story as well, and this may have a bounce to 45. I think it's an interesting space. I like when we see there's like a mood change happening when you see these 200-day moving averages, this big black line start to flatten. Still not flattening, it's still going down actually by 7 cents or so a day. So the velocity is still lower, but interesting area for, in my opinion, on that. Third biggest loser of the week is semiconductors. Already did the chart, so not doing that again. And then A share or China, the large China shares is the fourth biggest loser. Oh, not massively, but it's down 1.7% over the past week. It's actually up today. What happens now? Pretty crappy chart. I was actually almost going to zoom in on 6 months because it's such crapola. But this looks heavy, similar to what I was saying on the 200-day moving average. So China gave kind of people, especially with the rally in Baidu, or maybe not Baidu, it was Baba and other firms, PDD, I think, VIPs, JD. Like I said, I want to see this happen for a month or so. So what China was actually able to do was May 2nd, and then where did it start to buck for real? I mean, I'll give it to here, June 7th. So it had this 5 weeks of, I don't want to say shining because actually the last week it didn't do it. But that's all it was it was holding its 50 RSI on a 14-day. And that made it appear as it was strength just because of, higher closes essentially, obviously. But where do we go from here? Ugh. All I can say about that is, this is an ugly chart. Range bound. I mean, I hate to say that because it's there's nothing really to it. But I think this trades between 24 and 25 half, and is going to be kind of magnetized to that 23.85 level, right where we are here. So for me, a no touch. Momentum recently on the downside, losing about 1.5% in the past week. And then tech is the 5th biggest loser. Where we did the chart, it's down 1.5% in the past week. All right. So best 3 absolute trades of the week. If you were short Bitcoin, short solar through TAN, long oil, congrats. Those are 3 best trades of the entire week. Might do a video tomorrow because I can't do one Wednesday, I don't think. So be on the lookout for that. And all right, we will see you next time. Peace.